The conceptual self versus the existential self. The conceptual self is the idea of the self. This self has been scientifically located to be in the frontal lobe of our brain region. This is our thought identity self, or our egoic self. This self is a collection of acquired thoughts and beliefs, which is largely dependent upon where we grew up, what our names were assigned to us, what religions were assigned to us, and everything that we've been exposed to in the environment around us. Our minds collected all these ideas and beliefs, and then the cells responsible in our minds formed an identity based upon all that acquired knowledge. And that is the egoic self, that is the thought self, that is the conceptual self. That is the self that most people are identified with, including psychiatrists, psychologists. So all the attention is focused on the mind. Now for the existential self. The existential self is not a self at all. If one looks at a person, they cannot see the thoughts in the mind of another, but they can see the existence. They could see it through their mind, but once their mind sees what it sees, it forms a mental image of what it sees. That is not truly what something is, because by the time the mental image is formed, it is a conception of what it is rather than the truth of what it is. So the existential self is not of the mind, because right now I don't have any thought in mind, and yet my existence goes on. So therefore I cannot be who I think I am. I can't be of thought, because even when I'm not thinking, the existence goes on. So the existential self is not a self at all. It is just existence itself, which we are woven into. In other words, there's no separation between anything ever, between us and the environment. And this goes for every human being, because we're all made of the environment. Everything that makes us up, including our minds, are from the environment. We exchange energy from the environment at all times. So the existential self is universal throughout every human being on planet Earth. So the difference, once again, in a nutshell, is the egoic self, or the thought self, or the conceptual self, is based upon the acquired knowledge of the mind. And that's person dependent. And that's a belief system that's stored in our minds by selective cells in our brains. But that's just a conception of self. And normally it's also formed by our limited perception, which tries to locate the human based upon where our bodies are. And so the egoic self knows itself mostly of the body and of the belief systems that it acquires. But then there is the universal existential self, and that self is not a self at all. It's just the universe itself, which we're woven into, or the existence itself, which we're woven into. We're made of that. Even our minds are made of everything of the universe. There's no separation whatsoever. And that's why all human beings are the universe itself. And any separation could only be our mind's own creation.